Let's look at this really cool arming sword by Kingston Arms. Hello everyone, my name is Mike and this is Mathematic Swords. Welcome back to my channel. I have an exciting review for you guys here today, and what we're going to be looking at is the 13th century arming sword by Kingston Arms Type 14 blade. Now, Kingston Arms is a brand name that is manufactured under Hanway, and they mainly focus on European style medieval swords, and we have one from their lineup here today. And the thing that's special about this particular sword, and they do have another one in their lineup like this, but the thing that's special about it is that it was designed in conjunction with Atrim, the very well known and well respected swordsmith and sword designer, American swordsmith and sword designer. And so he didn't make this sword, but he provided the specs and the design features for it in conjunction with Hanway, and they produced this for us to take a look at today. Okay, so let's get rid of the scabbard and get right into this. And we'll take a look at the scabbard in a minute. So what we have here is a sword that is very representative of the Type 14 style blade. And that type is from the Ewart Oakshott typology system. And this is a very good, like I said, a very good representative type, or a very good example of that type. And what we have here is a very broad blade, fairly short. This is only a 28-inch blade. For an arming sword, that is actually quite short. And while it is actually short, it's not particularly light. This example weighs in at 2 pounds 2 ounces, and I do believe that that is pretty historical. It's fairly thick, it's fairly broad. So it does have a lot of authority in the cut, and it does have a lot of mass in the blade. So it does feel a little bit blade heavy, but that being said, it maneuvers very, very well and is actually quite nimble. But the impression is, while looking at this sword, you may think that it's a featherlight. It's definitely not. It has a lot of authority to it. Now, it's also characterized by this fuller that runs up a little bit more than half of the blade, which was very historical, and it has a very nice thin, slightly detailed crossguard, which I really, really like. Now the grip is leather wrapped, and I do believe that's cord underneath there and wood. So it's a wood core leather wrapped grip, and it does have this really nice but very simple wheel pommel, and it is peened. Now, what is the blade made out of? Kingston Arms used a 9260 high carbon spring steel, and it's very, very durable. In some of the cut tests that I had some bad cuts, and the edge is still quite sharp, and the blade did not bend. It's a very durable, nice blade. What kind of steel they used for the fittings, meaning the pommel and the crossguard, I have no idea, but I do believe it's some type of alloy. I don't think it's 9260 steel. Now, this sword comes in at around $350, depending on where you get it, and I will put a link down below as to where I got mine, so if you're interested, you can go ahead and purchase one. But they come in at around $350, so it's not a budget sword per se. I mean, I guess it is within the budget realm. If you were to get a sword like this from Atrim directly, I promise you would pay well more above $350, probably somewhere over $1,000. But that being said, this is, for a production sword, very, very nice. There are not many Type 14 blades in the production on the production market. I think there's a really nice one by Windlass, but this is actually really nice. It feels like it should be more than $350, but hey, you know, very good deal. That's something that I do have to say right off the bat. Now, one thing I do have to criticize about the grip, while it is very comfortable, it's not a stitched seam. I think they used some sort of glue, and I'm not sure if you guys can see it here. The camera is not picking it up very well, but where the seam is up at the top here towards the crossguard, it is separating very, very slightly. That's just something to keep in mind, that they did not use a stitched construction for the grip. They did use some sort of adhesive, and it has held together very, very well throughout all my cut testing and whatnot, but it does have a little bit of separation up here, very, very slight. It could probably easily be fixed, but you know, just something to note. One of the other criticisms I have about the sword, and I feel like I say this a lot, the edge that it came with was not particularly good. It was very rough. It seemed like it was kind of in an unfinished state. If they had just honed it a little bit more, I think it would have been okay and probably have cut fine. But as it is, as it came out of the box, it did not cut very well. It didn't cut paper very well. It didn't cut bottles very well. It didn't cut very well. So I went ahead and honed the edge, and I can tell you guys right now, it didn't take too much, and this edge is razor sharp and cuts extremely well. And you'll see that from the cut tests that I'll show in a minute. Now, in terms of handling, I already said it's not a particularly light arming sword. However, it's not very heavy, and the dynamics and stuff are actually pretty good. It's very maneuverable, and this actually is a very nice fighting weapon. I actually wouldn't mind using this. I wouldn't have mind using this if I were a medieval soldier. Now, the thing to note about this sword and how it was supposed to be used, and I am not a HEMA expert by any stretch of the imagination, I'm just an enthusiast, so, you know, if you want more information on that kind of stuff, I would watch, you know, Scholar Gladiatoria channel or one of these other more studied or learned scholars of HEMA. However, I do know that this type of sword would have been meant to be used with a shield or some type of buckler, and that's actually very important for understanding how, or trying to determine how effective of a weapon this would have been in combat. It's very flawed to compare swords to other swords that are from different periods. And so, you know, how does this compare with a two-handed long sword, or how does this compare with a military saber, or, you know, a katana or something like that? It's not really the right way to look at it. I think it's very important that you understand how the weapon would have been used, and then you can get a greater appreciation for what you're holding. And this actually would have been used with a shield or buckler, and so the relative lack of hand protection here would have been mitigated by having a shield to help protect your hands and your line of attack and whatnot. That being said, you know, that's another thing. Like, some people would say, like, oh, well, that arming sword has a very short blade, you know, it's only 28 inches, it's probably not very good. Well, you have to understand, this would be a sidearm that would be used for close quarters combat, and you would have a shield to protect yourself. So once you get in close to fight your opponent or attack your opponent or defend yourself, you would have a shield. And coupled with a shield, this would be a very fantastic fighting weapon. And you know, on its own, it's very cool and very, you know, very effective, but keep in mind it was supposed to be used with a shield. I think that's very important when understanding how effective this weapon would be. The quality and the build construction on this model is absolutely fantastic. For $350, I think you get a very well-built sword. Now, I had already mentioned that I had some bad cuts and that the blade withstood it no problem. But the construction, the peen construction, the guard, the handle, everything is rock solid. And I'm telling you guys, before I had sharpened the thing, I had some very bad cuts on some very thick water bottles, and that's a lot of resistance and shock for a sword, especially a production sword. And this thing handled it like a champ. There's no looseness, no wiggling, no edge deformity, no blade deformity, nothing. It is rock solid 100%, and that I greatly appreciate. So it's very well constructed. Like I said, the only criticism in terms of construction that I have is that I kind of wish they had stitched the grip or used a better adhesive or something over here, because it is very slightly starting to separate. But, just something to keep in mind. I'm trying to be fair and give you guys all the information that I can. The grip itself, as you can see, is fairly narrow and does taper down a little bit. It's very, very comfortable. There are no hot spots that I found in using this sword. The only two criticisms I have for it really is that it doesn't come, or at least mine did not come with a very honed edge, and needed a little bit more work to really enjoy the cutting capabilities of this sword. And also the grip coming separated just a little bit up top. Two minor things, I would say, in my opinion, for a sword in this price category. If you're not familiar with sharpening methods or not experienced with it, I can see how that can be a little frustrating, but like I said, it did not take a lot of work to get this edge up to razor sharp. So that being said, in terms of the edge, let's take a look at some test cutting, and I'll show you guys how fun and cool this sword is to use. Now, in some of the cuts in the test cutting, you're going to see I keep my hand forward in the cut as opposed to on my side or behind my back, like a saber style cut. And that's because I was trying to kind of mimic having your second hand forward, because it would have been holding a shield or some type of buckler or something like that. Just a fun little note for you guys. But yeah, let's take a look at some test cuts and show you guys how this thing performs. I didn't have any tatami, which I'm sad about, but the place where I get my tatami mats from was out of stock, probably supply issue due to COVID. So I wasn't able to test this on tatami, but I think I might have one roll left somewhere. I got to try to find it. I moved some stuff in my house, and I'll film a video cutting tatami with this. But basically, I cut some heavy, thick water bottles that are very unforgiving in the cut if you don't have a good edge or good edge alignment. So yeah, let's take a look and see how this thing performs. That. Woo! Okay guys, now that you've seen the cutting footage, once I got this edge honed up and ready to go, it cut like a champ, and I absolutely loved it. I enjoyed it. It was very, very fun and easy to cut with, like I said, once the edge was honed. But, that's something to consider. If you're not comfortable honing edges, that may be a factor for you, but otherwise, once again, keep in mind, these are not designed to cut water bottles, okay? This is a sword that would have been designed for combat, to cut flesh and, clothing and stuff like that. So the super razor sharp edge that I put on it is designed to cut water bottles. So if you're cool with the rougher edge, which I believe in combat would have been very effective against fighting someone. I mean, I wouldn't want to be hit by that edge, the factory edge, but keep that in mind. The cutting mediums that we use, the targets, are not very representative of what real combat would, the targets that are meant for this particular sword, okay? The key benefits of water bottles in cutting, I think, is seeing how your edge alignment is and practicing your form. I mean, essentially, that's all the information that you can get from water bottles. It doesn't tell you that much about how effective the edge would be or the sword would be in combat. And I always like to state that, or I'd like to state that now, because I think that's important when trying to decide whether or not a sword is good for combat or not. Yeah, so it did come with a very simple leather-lined scabbard. Now, this is very, very simple. There are no attachments on here for a suspension system. It only has one metal what is this? A chape. Only has a metal chape and no other fixtures on it that are metal. It does have a little bit of a throat here. It's leather, and it is wood core and very, very sturdy. One thing I do want to say is that the leather is very, very thin. It feels pretty good quality, but it is thin. But it's a very lightweight, simple scabbard, and it is good for housing the sword. And the sword does fit in there, no problem. And there is a little bit of rattling. It's not excessive, but it's, you know, it doesn't fit super, super tight. And the more you use it, the easier it is to get in and out of the scabbard. So my final thoughts of the sword are, it's a very, very good sword for the money. I think you would be very hard pressed to find something comparable to this on the market. This might actually be the best $350 arming sword of this particular type on the market. So yeah, that being said, I highly recommend it. Definitely go check it out. It's available, I believe, right now at Cult of Athena, and I think you can also get it from the Hanwei website, but you know, you are going to pay more money directly from Hanwei. It's a cool sword, guys. I highly recommend it. You know, for practice or HEMA, or if you want to hang it on your wall, I guess that's fine too. But oh, little Jace is in here for a little bit. Say hi, Jace.
Hi.
All right, get over there. So my final opinions of the sword are, it is a great, fantastic buy. If you're in the market for a Type 14 blade and you don't want to go really high up into Albion or a custom swordsmith or something, this is a fantastic option. It is very well made. It handles perfectly. Well, I can't say perfectly, but it handles very, very nicely. And it is very representative of this type of sword. And for $350, I don't think there's anything out there that can beat it in this price category. It's very, very nice. It's very well constructed. It's just a very cool arming sword that I think you guys will be very happy with. So thanks for coming by and watching my review. Please leave a like or subscribe or both for upcoming videos. And yeah, till next time, guys, have a very good day, stay safe, and once again, thanks for coming by.